All right, everyone. Welcome back dito sa latest episode natin. Live from Northern Europe naman this time. Northern Europe joining the greatest retired. Tarang nagdagdag na kayo, Justice, ng retired. Meron bang mga nagsasalita para yung mga nagka-question ng kung whether totoong political analyst or professor si Ronald Llamas? We're joined by Justice Carpio. Thank you so much, Justice, for joining us.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you to our viewers.
Of course, just to put things into context, it took us 45 minutes, almost an hour just to fix some technical issues. I don't know kung sinasabotage tayo dahil sa mga topics natin to do. Of course, as we speak ngayon, naghahanda na yung mga supporters si Pangulong Duterte to show force dun sa kanyang birthday in less than 24 hours. At mukhang may open invitation sa akin, Justice, because I was there at the detention center the other day and literally nag-group hug ako ng mga supporters
Wow.
ni Pangulong Duterte, including those who were taunting me. I said, no, I said, I go there, I group hug them, and I was nice and all. I said, huwag kayong maniwala sa misinformation, where hindi tayo magkalaban. But yung mga shoutout sa SMNI, friends natin, reporters natin, followers pala natin, Justice Carpio, yung SMNI network. They follow us very closely. Justice, before we go to really, really important issues na pag-usapan natin in terms of what could be the next things, I was just with Attorney Conti, kanina, meron siyang lecture dito also sa Europe about the ICC. Let's talk about the most important issue of all, Justice. At The Hague, I was able to confirm a number of very important factors and facts also, factors, logistical issues. Some of them I cannot share on the record. But one thing that really caught my heart was I think now finally I know exactly where in the world is Harry Roque. I know exactly how many kilometers for him. I know the coordinates. So from our sources, we got to know exactly what's going on with Harry Roque. Justice Carpio, from your understanding, should we bring Harry back to Hague? No, I'm just kidding. So from your understanding, does he have any chance of applying for asylum? Because there are a couple of problems that were raised by some of the experts at The Hague. One is yung point of entry mo is important. If you have options to be in other European countries, bakit ka sa Netherlands, right? I was also told na baka yung case ni Joma Season and the complications it created between Netherlands and Philippines perhaps may militate against their openness. But ultimately, of course, I think this also goes down to the fact that, the last thing Netherlands wants is to give a kind of an asylum to, let's just say, questionable characters. So in short, Justice Carpio, wala na daw manhunt, no man's land na daw ang situation ni Harry Roque because no one wants to take on him or take him into their team. What is your read of his situation?
Well, there is no warrant of arrest against him. It's just a subpoena by the Congress, and the subpoena will become ineffective. It will expire when Congress expires this June 30. So by the time this will be decided, there will be no more subpoena to him from the Philippine authorities, from Congress. So then he can come back. So there is no impediment for him. He will not be arrested because there's no outstanding arrest order or subpoena against him. So that will be his problem because that subpoena is good only for this Congress, for the 19th Congress. Yun ang problema niya.
Just as a part of me is suspicious you want an entrapment to happen here kasi as we know, the NBI, PNP are looking at potential serious charges, right? Human trafficking related allegations among others sa Pogos. So what you're saying is wag mo na sila mag-file. Let him come back
Well,
first.
it will take time because there's the preliminary investigation, I think, has not started yet. And maybe they will just not file yet. No?
You think that will make it easier for alam ko mahabang panahon 'yan, 'di ba? Speaking of High Roque, I mean, don't you think, Justice, I know this is crazy. This is wild. This is wild, but my suggestion was why not let's come up with a deal since ayaw na siya ng mga Duterte. Since ayaw na siya ng sarili ng mga lawyers na nire-recommend niya. Like no one wants no man's land nga, 'di ba? Um Why not come back home and be a state witness? Parang kumbaga, keep the goods, spill the beans. You know, like we know he must be a well-resourced guy to give such huge amounts to Sarah, and he can have all the luxuries of a tropical life back in the Philippines. But in exchange, can he become a state witness, or is he even credible at all anymore? Is he useful for anything anymore?
Well, one of the requirements to be a state witness is that you are not, you're at the least guilty. Well, in terms of guilt, is way down because he was just a spokesperson, no? So nasa aiding and abetting lang siya. He did not take direct participation. So, well, on that issue, that no, he will qualify because he's not the most guilty. He's probably the least guilty. But I don't know what's the value. If he has anything to say, because si Digong mismo, from coming from his own mouth, he admitted everything already. So, what is the value of 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 his spokesperson now? If the spokesperson turns state witness,
Yun nga, I think yun nga yung problema, hindi na namin alam saan siya pupulutin kasi baka useless siya sa government, useless siya sa Duterte side. You think the decision to sideline him was precisely because of the issues you raised earlier, which is baka gagamitin pa yung sarili niya mga sinasabi laban sa
yeah,
kanya,
I think the head lawyer, the lead lawyer,
si Kaufman.
realized that uh, they might use those videos of him saying that Duterte is a serial killer. So that's really terrible.
Masakit daw yun kasi siya daw yung nag-recommend dun sa lead counsel ngayon eh. So parang feeling niya, di ba, yung parang na-itsepwera siya ng sarili niyang recommendation. But isang chismis sa akin, Justice, again, these are from unimpeachable sources who already confirmed to us last year na there were communications going on. Sabi ng iba, mukhang hindi daw malabo na i-give up din nung current lead counsel itong case na ito once it becomes clear na mukhang walang mapupuntahan. I don't want to talk about track record, but some people would even go so far as to say, kung tinignan mo yung track record ng tao na yan, um, medyo not the most reassuring if you're in the Duterte camp. So, basically, sabi ng iba, who knows, within a year or right after September, if not earlier, baka kailangan na nilang maghanap ng bagong abogado. Have you heard something along those lines? Because that's what I'm hearing in Hague na
Well,
they're also not confident this guy will stick it through all the way for the next 2, 3 years, if not 8 years.
well, he withdrew from one of his clients, and his client was surprised because the client was not informed. No, although he got approval from the court to withdraw. So the client was saying, "My lawyer hasn't communicated to me." Yung pala, he withdrew already. So
Yun, di ba?
uh,
May track record siyang gano'n na he'll drop you in the middle of the...
yeah, he dropped the client because he said the client well couldn't pay him anymore, was in arrears. So, but I don't think that will be the case of Duterte. He has a lot of friends to pay for
To
the
cover
attorney's
the...
fees. Mm.
Is there an option for ICC to freeze his accounts or something? Because ICC has done that, right? In the past, they freeze the account of some of these alleged international criminals.
Yeah, yes, that's one of the requests probably of ICC because there are thousands of victims, and they will have to be compensated for their suffering and for their damages, no, for their injuries.
So, but will there be enough fund for him to keep an expensive foreign AFAM counsel?
Well, we will know when the impeachment court convenes and they order the bank accounts to be opened, the BPI bank accounts.
How important is that bank account issue, Justice? Because Senator Trillanes would basically argue na that's the key to the entire puzzle, right? Pag binuksan mo yan, magkakaalaman na talaga the whole empire of deception, if not worse.
Well, in case, well, that will unmask his claim that he has no money, that he's just depending on his retirement pay. and he will have to explain the sources of those funds, no? And Trillian is saying that those were uh, contributed by drug lords, no? So we will see. I mean, we'll have, because that can be easily traced, those funds, because checks were deposited. So there were people who drew those checks, and those people can be subpoenaed by the impeachment court.
And again, of course, nagkasabay kayo ni Justice Corona, no? Back in the day. Well, in his case, that was quite consequential, no? Once they went about his foreign currency account. To what degree is the shadow of that Corona case um, parang a template for what to do and what not to do? I mean, I think I never asked you about this question because this was about your institution back then. Can you tell me about your perspective? I know this is quite a sensitive question, Justice, but this is what's being raised constantly as a precedence or some sort of a template. Although, of course, we're talking about quite a different case here, but nevertheless.
Well, Corona deposited money in his dollar account, and his defense was that it's not subject to subpoena because it's a foreign currency account under the foreign currency law. Uh, but he admitted it when he appeared at the Senate that he had that account. So it became academic because there was an admission.
And do you think what are the prospects na kasi because these bank accounts could be not only Digong, right? It could be the family, it could be the vice president, right? Parang may joint account pa sila and all of that. So that's not just about Digong anymore, right? That could be about the entire family. The entire dynasty could be affected, right?
Well, in the impeachment court, it's only the account of Sarah, s- her personal account, as well as her accounts with other parties, joint accounts. Because if you are a joint accountee, then you are part owner of that account, and that can be inquired into. So only the joint accounts, her own personal and the joint accounts, will be subject to disclosure by the can be demanded. The records can be demanded by the impeachment court from the bank.
Um, and Justice, going back to this again, what is your understanding na hanggang September ginawa? Is this going to be a sui generis case? I mean, what is the level of debate among legal experts and luminaries? Um, is the timeline here something that is much more in line with historical precedents, or you expect this to be faster? Because I'm hearing very different interpretation of bakit September pang binigay. I mean, maybe the common uh, theme is mabigat yung kaso niya and mukhang hindi pa nagkaroon ng full realization that they have to engage the ICC. But a lot of people would say that that also could mean that this could take so long that maybe Digong will spend the rest of his life in trial, not even uh, before a final decision comes in. And then there are some people who are saying that you never know, that there's always a possibility that Duterte might get ano, temporary parang interim parang freedom or something like that. He might argue for that. And who knows? Maybe the jurisdiction argument doesn't work, but he might just have enough to argue that he will need some sort of temporary reprieve or liberty. I mean, what are the scenarios you're looking at, Justice? And from your understanding of the ongoing debate among experts and your fellow legal luminaries, what are the most likely scenarios to look at in the
Well, in
coming?
terms of timeline, the setting of the confirmatory hearing this September, that's more or less usual, no? Uh, but in terms of the total trial time, which is about 8 years, no, the normal takes about 8 years for the others. I think it will be shorter in the case of Duterte because there are just too many evidence already. The prosecution is ready, and the he has a lot of admissions, so it will be easier for the prosecution to present its evidence because of the admissions. And so I would say maybe it will be shorter by 2 years compared to the normal. And with respect to the
5, 6 years, you're looking at it? Happened
Yes,
term.
maybe about 5 to 6 years. Uh, and then with respect to the you were talking about earlier the
Yeah,
uh,
yung for yung ano yun, interim release or
yeah,
temporary,
interim
yung mga
release.
ganyan. Yeah, yeah, interim release.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the interim release. I think he will have that will be denied because for all intents and purposes, he's a flight risk because he was involuntarily brought to the Hague, and the only interim release that I could find was a military leader who voluntarily appeared at the Hague. So he was not a flight risk because he voluntarily surrendered. All those who were brought there involuntarily were not granted any interim release. And the other thing there is because he still has influence here, you can see the people supporting him. So he could still threaten the witnesses or some other people. No, so the court will be cognizant of that. That he has a lot of interest, a lot of supporters here, even in the Hague. No, so they would, I think, be careful in granting any interim release.
Yeah, I mean, and my understanding is tatanungin din yung ibang potential witnesses and tsaka victims, no, if they will
Yeah,
feel
the
safe.
victims, yes, the
Yeah,
victims
if
will.
you will feel safe if this guy is released. Kasi next thing na, baka yayarin kayo sa Pilipinas or kung saan, di ba? I actually met yung kapatid na isa sa mga biktima, one of the more prominent biktima na kinover ng international media kagabi. So it was quite an intense conversation. And you could see na hanggang ngayon, yung mga pamilya ng mga witnesses ay natatakot or they're still worried. They don't feel safe completely about coming out and sharing their stories kasi nga hindi lang sila na dehumanize online and offline, hindi lang sila ina-attack, but you never know about the situation. So medyo nakakatakot pa rin. I could see the chilling effect is still there considering the vice president is also a Duterte, right? So technically speaking, it's always possible another Duterte will be back in power. Justice, let me pivot back to the Philippines. What is your read of the whole Amy Marcos hearing? I don't know what to call it. I mean, with attorney Jingoy, with international law expert Cayetano. I mean, who was that lawyer na kinuha nila? Like, sino tong mga producer? I mean, sino tong mga to? Just, I cannot even Google their names. Saan sila pumupulot ng mga legal minds
Mhm.
to argue their case? Did you see the meme? Yung sinend ko sa'yo. It's like a 50,000 likes and all. Yung parang may jurisdiction ng ICC, you are Raul Pangalangan, ganun. Tapos sa baba, walang jurisdiction ng ICC, Robin Hood Padilla, yung mga ganun. So, medyo nadadagdagan, ha? May mga nilalagay din sila mga attorney doon sa baba. Who are these people, Justice?
Well, the main issue there is uh, okay, there is that law 98 Republic Act 9851 which authorizes the government at the discretion of the government to surrender the accused if there is already a case filed in an international tribunal. So the issue really is that law sufficient, or do you have to get a warrant of arrest from a local judge? I mean, because Republic Act 9851 is silent. It doesn't say that you have to. When you are surrendering to an international tribunal, but when uh, you extradite an accused to another country, there is a requirement. You have to follow the extradition law of the Philippines, which means you have to file a petition with the RTC, with the local RTC. So, as I said, it could go either way, and that is the very core of the issue there in that Senate hearing. So, I think that will be decided by the court anyway, uh, whether a warrant of arrest is required in addition to Republic Act 9851. So that's basically the whole issue there.
So, basically, you're saying medyo may silence pa ang existing laws natin. So,
And there is no precedent. There is no
yeah.
prior decided case. So, as I said, it could go either way, but it will not help Duterte because the rule in ICC is they don't inquire into how you were brought. to the ICC. If you're before the ICC, they will prosecute you, as long as the ICC was not responsible, did not participate in any irregularity in arresting you uh, in a foreign country, no, in another state. And of course, they had nothing to do with the arrest here. So, with the surrender here, it was a voluntary act of the Philippine government. So, that issue before the Senate committee now, it will not really affect uh, the trial in The Hague.
But it will have an implication for the next. Last time
Yes,
I heard that
correct.
up to 9, if not 11 other people could also be within the crosshairs. I mean, hindi lang si Pebbles. Ay, sorry, hindi lang si Bato de la Rosa. A couple of other people. Tingin ko minsan, Justice si Bato de la Rosa ginamit ng pang-distract. Like, while everyone is looking at Bato, iba yung mga dinadampot. I mean,
Yeah,
they
you're absolutely right. It will have an effect on the subsequent people who will be arrested or surrendered. So that is still a live issue as far as the other uh, people to be arrested. No, and I think their names are there already in the warrant of arrest, but they were just redacted. The names were redacted, so we know that there are others who will be arrested.
Pero pang redacted, di ba, you can see the length of the, like, redacted. Like, wait lang, parang kasya ba si ganito, ganyan. I mean, you could make some good bet, di ba, sino itong mga redacted names. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying, Justice. Tapos na. Basically, I was told by folks in the Hague, game over na for Digong. Do you buy that? Basically, game over na daw. Malaban na daw makauwi to or something. Yun na yung retirement na, basically. Do you think it's too optimistic for people to say that? Or rather,
Yeah,
too
well,
fatalistic, yeah.
well, I agree with the VP Sara that it's very unlikely, highly improbable that former President Duterte could return here, because even if he's acquitted, that will be 6 years from now
And he's
at the
80 tomorrow.
earliest.
And he's 80 tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah,
And he,
and he will be 86. And with the kind of evidence and all of those admissions that he made, I think he will get convicted. No?
and you're looking at what, 25 to 30 years? If ever
30
he were
years.
30
30
years,
years minimum. But then
110 years old.
because of the gravity of the offense, he could be given life imprisonment.
Well, I mean, 30 years is 80 plus 30 plus 6 years of trial. That's 116-year-old. I mean, unless meron siyang yung whatever is Enrile using, I think this is where Enrile comes handy. I think Enrile, yung stem cell yan or whatever they're using, Justice. But I think stem cell works. I've seen it with some people. Hindi ko na pangalanan. Parang wait, parang bumata ito nung nakikita ko nung bata ako, parang mas bata siya ngayon. Mukhang malapit naman ng Germany if you want to do stem cell. Pwede ba mag-stem cell yung mga ano, yung mga convicted or ano, Justice? Are they given that kind of privilege?
Well, I don't know if you want to stay longer there. If you are in
But
jail already for life, I don't know if you want to live that long.
116 years old. Well, you never know with anti-aging technologies coming, Justice. Anything is possible. So I look forward to talking to you for the next 20, 30, 40 years, Justice, God willing, about what's gonna happen here. But if you're younger person, right? If you're bato or like whatever, you're in the 60s, baka ma-survive mo pa yung 20, 30 years na yan, di ba? So I think they have a stake, right, in making sure things move in the right direction. Can the other principal people spill the beans on the others to give themselves some reprieve? Is that also possible, or it's too late now? They're past the quantum, the threshold of getting any.
Well, they can turn state witness, but they are the principal. So I don't know the rule in the ICC. Here in our country, you must not be the most guilty, no? Yeah. So here they cannot if it were before our court, but I do not know if they will. That's applied there in ICC.
Now, let's transition back dun sa hearings because I think we all know what was going on with that hearing. Obviously, as we speak, officially hindi na kasama sa alyansa si Amy Marcos. And to be honest, I don't think she's welcome back in any major Ilocano-speaking region from what I gather from our fellow Ilocanos, if I can put it that way. At mo malabo rin siya sa mga DDS sites. So it looks like mo malabo na si Amy Marcos. But nevertheless, having said that, I found the interventions very illuminating by government officials. No, kasi Crispin Remulla, mamaya na si John Vic, but Remulla said something like, "Our views are evolving. Nag-fail yung justice system natin." Those are quite an interesting revelations, if I can put it, right? Or admissions, rather, confessions. How important are those, justice, in terms of the next steps forward? Because many people are arguing, okay, if the justice system really failed, then why not rejoin ICC? Why not do some major judicial reforms? And why not form a truth commission? Kumbaga, go on a redemption arc. Because as we speak, Justice Carpio, medyo nahirapan ako. I'm actually here in Europe to also discuss parang, tignan mo, Justice, parang tayo nagbubuhay sa The Hague, landmark case, West Philippine Sea. Ngayon, ICC, practically every major landmark case, Pinoy ang involved. Di ba? It's crazy. Pero ang problema ko, yung kay Pinoy, may principal position. Yung ngayon, medyo hapyaw eh, di ba? So,
Yeah.
how can we make it more credible? Kasi ang positioning ko dito sa Brussels, sa mga others is, we are principled, kumbaga, defenders of rules-based order. But slightly, I'm having a problem with the positioning of the government. How can we fix that?
Well, right now, we are in a good position because even if we have already withdrawn from the Rome Statute, we have this Republic Act 9851, and it's working. We can surrender the accused if there's a warrant of arrest issued by the ICC. So it worked. I mean, nobody thought that Duterte would land in the Hague, in a jail in the Hague. But it worked, even if we are not a member of ICC now. Now, even if we have not rejoined, it still can be done. So we can tell them, well, even without rejoining, the accused has been brought to the Hague. So, well, but my personal opinion is I think we should rejoin uh, to make it easier. But right now, if they cannot complain that we are not a member because we did deliver the guy there. No.
We did deliver the goods, the best thing, the best goods they're gonna have. I don't know about Harry Roque voluntarily going there, but we delivered the goods, the involuntary goods. Justice, again, going back to this, do you think that that hearing was also illuminating? Because one thing I appreciated dun sa conversation natin last time is when you say the justice system failed, before even going to the courts, your former branch, judiciary, dapat pag-usapan yung preliminary steps. Step 1 and step 2 pa lang, di ba? This is entirely executive, di ba? Looking at the
Yes.
fact of the case, filing charges, DOJ na yan, PNP na yan, or NBI at some cases, right? So I think in a way, hindi naman na-vindicate, pero na-reaffirm lang what you've been telling us that when you say justice system, this is not just the judiciary, right? So you think that was important, right? For Crispin Remulla
Yes.
to come out there and reveal yung
It,
mga doctoring of all the numbers and mumbo-jumbo that
yeah. That's really the rationale for the existence of the ICC. In a situation where the the perpetrator of the crime against humanity is the head of government himself, who controls the investigatory arm, the prosecution arm. So nobody will investigate him. Nobody will prosecute him. That was really the situation when Duterte was the president. Nobody could move against him, and and even we also have that rule, that the jurisprudence, that a sitting president cannot be sued civilly or criminally. So nothing can really move. So the requirement of the Rome Statute that the ICC will come in if the state is unable or unwilling to investigate and prosecute in good faith. At ito, unable because there is a bar. The law says you cannot investigate a
So
sitting president.
structural, yeah, structural yung bar, not only political will, yeah.
Yes, there is a statutory bar. I mean, uh, by law, you cannot. So it's really justified. The entry of ICC is really justified.
Yeah. But also the admission that na kulang talaga ang executive branch in terms of taking care of the basics, right? Including yung evidence gathering. Tampered daw yung evidence. I think
Yeah,
General Torno. Yeah.
and uh, the DOJ Secretary Remulla made a very interesting revelation. He said about 5 years ago, during the time of Duterte, the DOJ transferred all the records of the extrajudicial killings to the ombudsman, and it's been sitting there.
That's
And
another one we have to talk about. Di ba soon up for ano rin, new leadership din ng ombudsman? I mean, maybe that's an important thing we have to also mention, right? Yeah.
yeah, well, there will be a new ombudsman by August of this year.
This is very important, Justice. But then again, I mean, para hindi ito lumabas na I'm here basically lawyering for the judiciary. But to the degree that the judiciary itself was involved, sa tingin niyo ba nagkulang din ang justice system natin, Justice? Because I completely take your point, and I think Crispin Remulla was perfectly fine. I know these are your former colleagues, this is your institution, but in a moment of self-reflection, sa tingin niyo ba nagkulang din? Because some people would find some of the even Supreme Court rulings as a bit, I won't say
Well,
evasive, but not as decisive and robust as people would have expected them on key issues, including withdrawal from the ICC by Duterte.
well, whatever you say about the Supreme Court, you have to remember that in their ruling in Pangilinan versus Cayetano, the court unanimously declared that the ICC has jurisdiction for offenses committed while we were a member, and that was the exact period when Duterte was being charged for those offenses for the EJ case during those period. No, so that saved the case. That statement of the court.
That residual jurisdiction argument.
Yeah, yeah. So and that portion of that decision was very good. It complied with the Rome Statute, and that's how it should be interpreted. So that's why Duterte will have a hard time because it was a unanimous decision of the court that all those EJ cases that happened when we were still a member could be prosecuted by the ICC, and that's our Supreme Court saying that.
And you think that was definitely decisive. And Justice, what is your take of this on this debate? Na since Digong lumabas dun sa ICC by basically unilateral executive action without concurrence of the Senate, and let's be honest, the Senate takot kay Digong nung time na yan. I think everyone knows that fact. Is it possible for BBM to, through executive action, just basically reactivate our accession to the Rome Statute so that it doesn't have to go through Attorney Jinggoy, through Judge Cayetano, through international law expert Amy Marcos? You know, well, mukhang wala na si Marcos by next Congress. But do you get what I'm saying, Justice?
Well, I think if we rejoin, that needs concurrence of the Senate because rejoining means it's exactly like joining for the first time. And I think the senators would eventually be convinced to rejoin because if we don't rejoin, we are left with the Republic Act 9851, which was the law used against Duterte. In other words, you can just be picked up and sent there. While if you are a member, we are a member of ICC, there's a requirement that if there's a warrant of arrest, the state will have to go to the judiciary to get an order to send him to ICC. So they will be more protected. You will be more protected if we are a member than now, no?
Which is the debate within the DDS camp, diba? Basically, Sara is saying we have to engage the process, right? And if you're Bato de la Rosa, who's almost certainly facing something, like you would rather us have us still within the framework of ICC, diba? Para ma-invoke mo yung provisions rather than
Yes.
outside and denying the reality.
Yeah.
that you could face.
That's why it's a very, very ironic that Duterte is now saying, well, the ICC under Article 59 says that you have to go to the local court first to get an order. He's now invoking the very treaty that he terminated. So it's a very ironic. If he did not terminate it, he could use that argument. But now he could not use that argument because he terminated the treaty.
Justice, irony is irony is a nice way of putting it. Irony, I won't say hypocrisy, but irony is the middle name of the Duterte camp. I mean, these are the people who are saying, Justice Carpio, comparing to Ninoy Aquino, apparently that's not even enough. They're comparing him to Andres Bonifacio. Bayani daw si Justice Carpio. I think I was kasi andun ako sa detention center and I was looking around. Ang ganda ng mga bahay, quaint yung houses, inis na inis yung mga kapitbahay kasi ang daming dumarating. They're never used to that. They don't have that. You know, there's a detention and then like daksaan ng tao, and I think worry ng ibang tao baka maglagay ng statue of Bayaning Digong or something dyan sa detention center. I mean, that's how ridiculous it is nowadays when it comes to our friends in that particular camp. So I'm not very surprised. Towards the
Yeah.
end, yes,
Well,
yes.
you can probably put there in that statue that here is our hero who killed 30,000 of his countrymen.
And therefore, you judge the people who treat him as hero. Wala kami masabi dyan, right? Like if that's your person who's your hero, then medyo may problema tayo dyan. Just to be honest, just towards the end na tayo dito. Again, gusto kong balikan itong issue ng mga biktima because one thing I've really noticed, and this is really troubling, Justice Carpio, is itong nakikita kong false sympathy or asymmetric sympathy. I mean, we saw that already with conflicts like in Gaza, among others. Maraming Ukraine versus Gaza, positioning West. But here in the case of the Philippines, parang ang dami kong naririnig, including hindi Duterte supporter, including mga nagbibili ako ng quote bago pumunta dito sa ICC Hague. Nakilala ko ng mga tao, Sir, pupunta ka ba sa Hague? Kawawa naman si Digong, matanda na, ganyan, ganyan, ganyan. Tapos, syempre, a part of me was saying, napanood niyo ba yung video niya sa Hong Kong at saka yung last year na sabi niya, upakan niya yung ICC. So parang ang daming naawa kay Digong. I understand in our culture, you know, respect for the elderly, for seniors. I've been very close to my lola and my grandparents, so I understand that soft spot. Pero parang, are people even bothering to hear the story of yung mga biktima? Last night, I met the sister of one of the victims, and 8 years na, she's still traumatized. She's, you know, people are having mental problems, and talagang buong pamilya ay apektado talaga. It's an intergenerational trauma. But mukhang people are not paying attention to those victims. Do you think a creation of a kind of a truth commission na everyday invite these people, give them safe space and protection? Kasi takot din daw yung ibang biktima magsalita, baka babalikan sila ng ibang pulis or ma-implicate yung ibang pulis na hindi principal. What do you think about that role of the state to create that safe space for kind of a truth commission? And this is going to be a
Well,
year
yeah,
before.
this has something to do. Well, essentially, this is about due process. No, uh, the victims of EJ case, they were not given due process. They were just shot right there in their house or in the streets. They were begging for to give that they be given time to explain that they are not addicts, that they are not pushers. Even Kian, you know, he said, "I still have an exam tomorrow." I mean, if you're thinking of your exam, you're not you're not an addict. I mean, you're thinking of your studies. So they were not given due process, and here is Duterte now, who is demanding due process, and he isn't even being subjected to death. He's just given a fair trial, and he's demanding a due process from the very from you know, these his supporters are saying, well, the others were not given due process because they were just ordinary people, but this is the president. We have to give him due process. I mean, that's totally unjustified because due process should be given to everyone. I mean, if you give due process only to the president, then the entire nation, 120 million people, will not get due process. And what kind of a society is that? So we have to tell our people due process is should be given to everyone, should be accorded to everyone. And that's one of the failures of the Duterte administration. They just killed without giving due process. Now you can see Bato, Duterte, they're all asking for due process. I mean, we just have to explain why due process is important.
Yeah, exactly. Not only due process, I mean, the treatment here in The Hague, right? The facilities, maayos lahat. You're gonna have time, you're gonna be given
Yeah,
everything.
you can just juxtapose the picture of
Yeah.
his cell in The Hague, very well appointed room, and the cell of the people who are crowded in jails when they are brought to a jail here. So
Hilton Hague nga eh. Hilton Hague yung sarcastic. Yeah, I mean, although
so yeah,
if he's convicted, he'll be in a different facility, but at least the detention
yeah,
facility is pretty.
that's why we have to teach our people. That's why due process is important. Because can you just imagine, they are now demanding due process for him. But how about those who were killed? 30,000, if you take the high end of the number of the figures, they were not given due process. So due process is important.
Yeah, I mean, because you will need it one day for yourself also. Like, parang ganun eh. Kasi parating nilang argument na, oh, ayaw niyo sa drug war ni Digong kasi wala kayong addict sa pamilya. So, it's like, oh, ayaw niyo sa due process kasi hindi niyo alam. You get what I'm saying? Like, because there are all sorts of that kind of ridiculous arguments throughout the years that they try to use. Now, Justice, in terms of obviously, yung ICC cases here, these are all principles, right? Maximum 11 or 9, whatever, pwedeng mahuli dito. But obviously, hindi mangyayari yung basically yung killing machine or killing fields sa Manila if hindi daan-daan na ating miyembro ng kapulisan and mga others involved. Is there a kind of a way for them to be reintegrated security sector reform wise whereby you're not gonna have mass resignation or even worse backlash or something? This is quite sensitive issue, right? Because the ICC is just gonna go after the principals. But those are the
Well,
architects. What
yeah.
about the everyday executors, enforcers, right?
Well, I think there was just a small group that were doing the killing. This this was the group that was
Special death
imported
squad
from
talaga yun.
Davao. Yeah, this was the death squad that was imported from Davao. Second, we can look at our military right after martial law. They had this mindset that uh, human rights are not important, but they went through educational. They were taught human rights, and finally they've imbibed human rights. No, so it can be done. We can solve the problem in the PNP. It will take time, but we can teach them the value of human right, due process, and I think we should start that already because we don't want this to happen again.
Again, thank you so much, Justice. I know super delayed tayo, so I took much away time from you. But I cannot part with you without talking about the greatest president of all, Donald Trump. As we speak, Pete Hagseth is there in Manila. Pete signal chat chat room Hagseth. I think people should know what's the reference point. So I'm in the European Union right now, and one of the things I'm gonna discuss with our friends in the Parliament, whatever commission, whatever, is that we need to work more together, right? Philippines and Europe
Yes.
and all. Europe is big and they want to give us a free trade agreement. Generally, as a progressive, I don't like FTAs, but I think with EU we'll get a very good deal if God willing things push through. How important it is for the Philippines to position itself as a champion of rules-based order, West Philippine Sea, ngayon ito ng issue ng ICC. And from there, how important is for us to have a strong relationship with Europe? Basically, what message do you want me to carry to our good friends here in Brussels, Justice?
Well, Europe really was responsible for that provision in the UN Charter that all disputes between states must be settled by peaceful means. You cannot use force or threat of force to settle a dispute between states. And for us, we really need that kind of order because we are facing threats from a nuclear armed state, from China. So we sympathize with them, what's happening in Ukraine, and we feel that, and we know that position is the correct position to prevent wars, no? To prevent countries from invading another. Just because you're nuclear armed, you can just invade another country. That will really destroy the world. So we have to support the EU for that, and they should also support us because the same thing is happening in the South China Sea.
I mean, the book The Internationalist is now, I think, a favorite of
Yes.
probably all of us, right? Not only you, even Farid Zakaria. I saw he did a special on that. Just to remind people, why is it important for us to have a rules-based international order? Kasi I've heard many Pinoy saying ganyan talaga, kung superpower, you get away with it. I remember nung time na in-invade pang Ukraine, I heard someone close to me saying, ginusto niya, you don't poke the bear. Yung ganyan mindset na parang you got it coming because you pick on the wrong country. Yung mga ganun mindset. Can you remind people how internationalism is really our best chance not to be gobbled up?
Yeah,
Like what
that's the
we were
only way we
asking
can
for.
survive. For countries that are small or even middle powers which do not have nuclear weapons, they really have to rely on international law. So we just have to shore up support for that for the UN Charter.
And of course, we need international law if people like Harry Roque are gonna have a chance to travel all around the world and seek exile. It's the best way. Actually, the good thing heard is ang taas ng mga nagre-register mag-LLM ngayon sa because of what's happening. I mean, masarap maging LLM student nowadays bilang isang Pilipino. So I really encourage a lot of people to also look at options. Maybe down the road, I'll also look at that option down the road. LLM at The Hague. Exciting times, amazing times. Thank you so much, Justice Carpio, for the time you have put. I know it took us almost 1 hour to get this going. Your patience, your love, and dedication is very much appreciated. And looking forward, Justice, hopefully in the near future, once you're back from your other engagements in person na naman tayo. Because bestseller yung ano natin yung press conference natin with Sir Ronald. Although ang daldal ni Ronald though, like someone did a quantitative analysis, he did 68% of the entire talk. Like, it's like, he like, Ronald, ano? Ikaw kasi kasalanan mo yung justice. Sabi niya, this is not legal, this is political. Tuloy, si Ronald, go na siya. Like, oh my God. But I'm glad that we have clarified many things. Among others, hindi po rendition ang nangyari at hindi maging valid ground for that. Sorry, Justice, I have to come back to that. Ang dami kasing nagalit doon sa press conference natin. Like, they loved it, but I said, wait lang, pag DDS makinig baka they might twist what you're saying. So, thank you for this fifth follow-up since that historic press conference together. Mabuhay ka, Justice Carpio. Let's keep in touch. And it's always lovely to have you. God bless po.
Thank you. Thank you to our viewers.
Salamat po, sir.